We buli jombi kola.
nze nga nsete na gundi buli lunaku.
You're welcome on Basket's Fire Network, Africa Maria, with my colleague INNOSSETU from Kampala, Uganda. Of course, it is 5:30 p.m. here in Kampala, Uganda. The weather is cool, and of course, without wasting your time, let's just dive right into our topic today. Our topic is how colonialism changed African society. So, for um, for some time, we've been, of course, discussing about how the Western world has influenced African society. Um, we have also talked about how the mainstream has changed African society, but we usually skip the fact that this entire thing started the day Africa was, of course, the day these people decided, of course, to have their interest in Africa. Now, that is the topic we're going to have today. Before that, I'll let Ino say hi to you guys.
Hello everyone that is watching the Black Hot Fire Network. Hope you're doing good. Hope the weekend is doing good. Yeah.
All right, we know that colonialism had a profound and multi-faced effects on African society, and we know it has reshaped various aspects on social, economic, cultural, and political lives in Africa. Now, the impacts of colonialism, of course, varied across regions and were influenced by the specific policies and practices of the social powers involved. Now, here are, of course, some of the points, some of the things we're going to discuss about. And of course, first of all, um, our societies were changed. Our society had a political transformation, right? We had a political transformation. Of course, the colonial masters divided us in borders and states. The colonial powers often imposed artificial borders, disregarding pre existing ethnic or cultural division. They did not really care. They did not really care whether this territory we have got this tribe or not. They just decided to divide. At one time, people woke up only to realize that they were living in a different country or state entirely. So, of course, this has led to challenges and conflicts in post-colonial colonial states. Also, the political system. Traditional political structures were often distributed or replaced by the colonial administration, introducing hierarchy and a system that served the interest of the colonizers. Just to be
Yeah. Good.
Uh, all right. We also, of course, experienced the economic changes. We also experienced the economic changes, exploitative economies. Like colonials were typically exploited. Sorry, the colonies were typically exploited. Colonies were typically exploited for their resources with economic systems geared toward extracting wealth for the benefit of the colonizing countries. So apparently, Africans for some good time have not been benefited by what is rightfully ours throughout history. that we had the colonial masters still, of course, extracting wealth that benefited them. They never regarded us as important throughout history. This thing is not new. Exploitation of Africa is not a new thing. Now, for the fact that our wealth was from history, Africa's wealth was extracted to benefit the colonizing countries. Um, this has changed the entire African social life. It has changed our society in a way that um, we have got division of classes. That's one. Two, we are used to the fact that these minerals do not belong to us. People still feel like the minerals do not belong to us. The minerals belong to the Bazungu. That people are not standing out to fight for something that they have never seen. You know, to have, because these minerals don't reach the local people in Africa. We keep on talking about Africa has gold, Africa has a diamond. Local people have never seen this before. They cannot fight for something they've never seen. So this has really changed the way Africans view. You cannot be complaining about something you don't know. You've never even seen. You just see in movies. You just hear people say. It's a different thing. People love things that they connect with, the proximity, the nearness of things. And I think African minerals are far away from the African possession, and up to the point that Africans have agreed, and they are for some good time they have agreed that these minerals, the African wealth and mineral is not part of them because they have not seen how these minerals have impacted on, of course, at the African societies. And
Mm-hmm.
also, our society was changed, of course, by the introduction of cash crops. For some good time, colonizers introduced cash crops for export. They reshaped the local agriculture and sometimes causing food shortages as subsistence farming was undermined. Nowadays, people still grow cash crops. People still grow cash crops. People still grow tea. People still grow coffee. To the point that if you go to the areas, the rural areas, even our home in the rural areas, we have coffee. We have a coffee plantation just by when we are planting matoke in there, there is still that coffee, in our farm. Not all our farm in the village, but some parts. And I think every household has at least one, two, or three tree coffee plantations, or a coffee plant or a coffee tree in their area. So when they introduce these cash crops, they introduce them to benefit them for exportation purposes. But Africans adapted this, that until now we still grow cash crops, which of course tend to be a crop that, of course, is used for business, a crop that people do plant for money to make to sell and get money. So that only reshaped the African society, and people undermined, of course, what we used to call our traditional crops or our traditional plants that we used to plant for home consumption. Now, people, even till now, they are focusing on commercial agriculture. People are focusing on commercial, food, cultivation, where people apparently decide to grow food on a larger scale just to sell this food. And this is traced way back to history, of course, where the colonizers introduced this, and they designed the minds of the Africans to believe that food is only meant for, of course, sale. They also had we had a social disruption, which of course was caused by forced labor, missionary activities. In forced labor, colonial powers often implemented forced labor, displacing communities and disrupting traditions, the traditional social structure. Yesterday, guys, we told you about how the German people, of course, committed those atrocities. The atrocities that were committed on in Tanzania are not very different from the atrocities that were committed by different colonial masters throughout Africa, and you can see very well that this caused a lot. This caused a lot, and first of all, some Africans were displaced, others even died. A family structure was broken broken down because apparently the colonialists or the colonial masters usually used to pick they were so very much interested in the men and the energetic young men. So a lot of African women were left as single mothers because the colonial masters decided to take the men away from the families and leave women to attend, to the families, doing all the responsibilities that men supposedly were supposed to be doing within the community. Of course, when we look at the history of slavery and how Africans were mistreated, that's in the United States of America, raping a man or forcing black men into sexual acts is also part of this. But that act did not only, of course, happen in America. This was just a technique that was adapted from Africa, and of course was used still back in America. In Africa, men were as well sexually harassed by the colonizers or the military personnel who were working for the colonizers' government at that time. That everything, the family setting of Africa got actually was broken down, and to the point that that system still runs nowadays. When we talk about an African man holding the bull by the horn and taking full responsibility of a family and knowing his duty as a black man, that history steps way back even before the colonialists, because when the colonialists stepped here, everything totally changed. We never saw an African man behaving the same. We never saw African women behaving the same. The impact the colonialists brought to Africa's soil still remains in the mind, and it still remains in existence, and it has tremendously shaped the future, the past, the present, and the future of Africa's existence in the world. INNOSSETU ogerako mukwano tebanvuma
Ani akuvuma?
ogusajja guyinza okugyawo nago ayogera guli oba gwikalifa
Bakuvumira.
anti lwenjoganya agamba mbu goyogera nnyo towooyo muvubuka kwogera
Naye akyogera omulundi gumu.
era ajja kujja akyogera
Ate eri naawe.
gw'obeera onyumirwa nga bankola bwe bati
Wakayogera eddakiika 15. Show zaffe yakazibeeramu emirundi eno.
yogera
Tekyogera omulundi gumu.
kyogera nga kiba kiyinza okugalwa entyo ng'otudde awo
Kibi kitya?
stop
Gamba okooye.
sinnabakoowa nobuwakanga busigenda kwogera baba yogera
Yogera.
yangire
Anyway.
yogera
We know that African society is a collection of people united with tradition, norms, values, and culture that emphasize polygamy, extended family practice, farming, and to some extent economic potentials.
Hmm.
But then how did the colonialism in Africa, how did the existence of colonial masters in Africa bring about change in African society? We know that the African society was divided, because even up to now, people are divided in African society. What we call a collection of people with the unity of or with united tradition and norms and values and culture, it is no longer in Africa. Why? We know that the imposition of colonialism on Africa altered its history, altered our history forever. African modes of thought, patterns, culture, development, and ways of life were have been forever impacted by the change in political structure brought about by colonialism. We know that. So the African economy is significantly changed by the Atlantic slave trade through the process of imperialism and economic policies that accompanied colonialism. So we know that prior to scramble for Africa, or the official um, partition of Africa by the major European nations, by then the France, Britain, and of course German by then. So African economies were advancing in every area, particularly in the area of trade. But how did this impact Africa? We know that the aim of colonialism is to exploit the physical, human, and economic resources of an area to benefit colonial nations. So European powers pursued this goal by encouraging the development of commodity-based trading system. Cash crop growing agriculture system was introduced in very many African countries. Actually, even in my home area, we still have those big factories for the British. In my area, they are still there. However, these days,
Yeah,
some
we,
of
we
them, they are
also
now
have
closed.
Ginary
Yeah, they are still there.
for
Very big.
cotton, for cotton.
Mm.
I've never seen cotton
So,
before though.
by building a trade network linking to total economic output of the region to demand of the colonizing state, the development of colonialism and partition of Africa by European colonial masters um, arrested the natural development of African economic system. We
Mm,
had a running economic system in Africa, but all this, it just sank into the Western interests and Western economic system. So Africa, prior to colonialism, was not economically isolated from the rest of the world. However, indeed, African states had engaged in international trade from time of pharaohs, the ancient of Egypt, pharaohs of the ancient of Egypt. So these people and very many African people believe that trade started after these Wazungus came here.
mm,
Africans, we did trade before the coming of Bazungu.
mm,
So we know in Egypt trade was going on. Egypt is not a European country. Egyptians were doing trade across the world. And
mm,
actually, and West Africa specifically had developed extensively international trading system during the eras of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. We know that these huge empires relied heavily on the taxing of foreign trade to finance government expenditures by then.
mm,
Together.
mm,
So the wealth of these nations, I mean Egypt, Mali, Songhai, Ghana, um, uh, the wealth of these nations was dependent largely on the trade in gold, but also on the levying of customs taxes, booty from foreign expeditions, and fees associated with administrative offices. However, even more significant to the era of colonialism is the era of Atlantic slave trade. Hmm?
mm.
So this slave trade existed in Africa for over 300 years and introduced to the continent sophisticated system of credit and exchange. Slave trade
Mm.
it exposed Africa to sophisticated system of trade and exchange.
Mm.
Although these markets existed prior to the trade, these great increases in trading brought about by European demands for slaves stimulated their further development. So, credit, debt in currency, and the interest all developed space with the trade. We know that one result of increase in international trade was that indigenous African economy was subordinated to the interests of Europe. So slave trade system did this by substituting European manufactured good products for those products which normally would have been made locally here in Africa.
Mm.
So, thus, we see early developing patterns in Africa as a source of raw materials, in
Mm.
this case, labor, and the only consumer of these goods. So, the result of such uneven trade is evident. It
Mm.
is a clear evidence that even innocuous, imports such as textiles competed damagingly with the local products, with the result of technological gap between Africa and Europe confined in very many centuries back to shipping of firearms widened to such extent that African technology failed to progress. So these are the same people that are putting us back because they are
Mm.
taking whatever it requires from out of Africa.
Mm.
The raw materials they are taking. How are we going to develop? So this changed African economic system. You know, African society, like I said at first,
Mm.
it has a I talked about being a collection of people united with the tradition, norms, values, culture, polygamy, extended family practice, economic potentials. That is the economic system. I mean the society, African society system.
Mm.
So we shouldn't look at culture only as the family, as the economic system in Africa, but it is a wide thing. It is extremely wide thing. So we see these people, um, we see the Bazungus that this pattern of unbalanced trade continued into the period of colonialism and it remains today. That imbalanced system, when I was growing up, they used to tell us that you exchange you exchange a rabbit for a cow. It is what these people are doing. They take gold from Africa, they bring products here which are irrelevant to Africa. And most of the products that we get from these countries, they are second-hand products, starting from cars
Mm.
that we get from out.
Mm.
Good machineries, these are second-hand things. Yet they take the raw product, the raw materials from Africa, they take them from here. So the unbalanced trade has continued over years into due to colonial, actually from colonial period, and this unbalanced trade remains up to today. In spite of this, local states still controlled the supply side of slave trade system, although some slave raids were done by European merchants, so they still depend on the cooperation of local rulers to insecure the steady supply of slaves for the markets during those days. Vancouver. In fact, it has argued that we always see that the slave trade itself was a essential part if the development of some African states. Together,
Mm.
if at all slaves were not taken from Africa, like I told you, slave trade was for intellectuals. They took people who knew something to do. We they took intellectuals from Africa who developed
Nakugambye waali mba kusigala nga
we know the
njogera
problems already.
adazi.
When eggulu nga teyabyogera ekito kyesibwako. We know the problems already. When are we going to talk about how to treat foreigners? I mean, whites and Arabs. Good morning, everyone. You can fire. Could say them for another. Yeah, right.
Obeera omuwagiranya nze ate ogaye mumanyi nze bwakugamba nti omanyi akabanga kemberedde wano oyo gaayi ate alina akawunti endala gye yagirambamu
No, Africans
ne
had their own
bagibulooki
activity.
nga tebula bwayogera ebintu kiifi tabisoma.
So, so Iganfire says that how are we going to do about these people because we know
Mulekeraawo kwogera ku ebyo bino.
they know, but not everyone knows. Very many Africans in Africa, they believe that what they have, they are contented with what they have. They don't think that it has a genesis. So I don't think everyone knows about this. And if everyone knew about this, we wouldn't be here.
Ebyo walimu
Eh?
mutabufu. Ikan, good morning. How are you? Yeah, maybe we can talk about that on the next topic, but apparently, we usually discuss about things. Not everyone is aware. When we are having these topics, we are always an open discussion where we learn. I believe not everyone knows everything. I also believe in learning. So at times, and not everyone knows the thing, because more especially the Africans. Africans are so very green about their history and what is going on. So maybe probably if we are to discuss about the topic that you would love us to, of course, discuss, which of course is not going to be today. Probably we shall have to schedule for that particular topic for you so that hopefully next time when you come, we are able to, of course, explore the topic of your interest. But as of today, we are still gonna, of course, talk about those things. Not we are supposed to be knowing the things, okay? Apparently, Africans are supposed, but they do not know those things. So we are always here to remind them. We are always here to remind them, basically. Yeah. So maybe we shall talk about that topic of yours next time, right? Sajjayagala okuyomba.
Mhm. Okay.
Zaali yali nsomako bibya. So uh n'obwongo tebukyakola. Just like Innocent was saying that colonialism had a profound effect on Africa's family traditions. It reshaped the social structure, gender roles, and cultural practices. And of course, we know that the impact of colonial rule varied across different regions, and it has affected Africa.
Right. And maybe she's going to continue where she stopped from when she was coming, or where she stopped from. But um, I was trying to bring out how I was trying to bring out uh, how African society African economic system, how does it get the impact from the colonial system? How do we get even up to now the effects of the effect? How does the effect, the implication of colonialism apply today in our lives today in Africa? For very many years, the demise of slave trade, that of course began in 1807, when the British government made it illegal for British subjects to engage in slave trade, government to engage in slave trade. Uh, we know that the era of legitimate trade began and Africans became a source of raw materials for the rapidly industrializing European powers. So, legitimate trade in West Africa, particularly, was characterized by extensive development of cash crop that could be exchanged or sold for imported European goods. Because of the increase in demand for agricultural products such as the palm oil and groundnuts, the transition was made without any severe economic consequences. So these goods literally grease the wheels of industrial consequences. So these goods literally, like I said, greased the wheels of industrial revolution that was in Europe by then, and were used in Europe to increase the efficiency of machine production as well as the manufacture of consumer goods in Europe particularly. These people were not looking at Africa, they were not caring about Africa because, and by the way, the exchange for goods ate kimanyi kiva ku jinja gw'onyodde wano mu kyayi atayokya. So politically, the abolition of slave trade had more long-range consequences. Um, while slaves had been exported from Africa to the plantations of New World, the agricultural products demanded by industrial revolution were shipped directly to Europe from Africa. It became necessary, therefore, for Europeans to more actively secure the supply of these goods. The British, in their zeal to extirpate the slaves and protect their own legitimate commerce, were driven into intervene in local politics on scale which no European power had ever done before. So the separation of slave trade and resulting new shift to export of natural products integrated Africa more deeply into capitalist world economy than ever before. Okitegeera?
Mm.
Uh, we know that actually in the 19th century and the end of slaving saw the commercial integration of entire continent of Africa. Northwest, South, Central, and Central Africa also became more centralized politically. The 19th century, we know that saw the rise of large African states that exerted considerable influence on trade of these commercial goods. Typical of these states were Uganda, here in Uganda, Ethiopia, Madagascar, and Asante in Ghana,
Exactly.
that engaged in this kind of trade.
Mm.
Okitegeera nti bashiftinga from slave trade ne badda ku integrated trade. Kitegeera? So although some of the states disintegrated before the scramble for Africa, we should know that it began in we know that they were also involved in the production and trading of these commodities as well as Europeans were. An important example of the interest of African states in development of commerce and trade is in constitutional experimentation under the fund of consideration.
Twayogedeko nogamba nti
Mm.
people who involved mu trade ezo ezisinga baali banene. So you're going
Mm,
another cage.
it was a trade for intellectuals.
Truly.
Okay. Bro, do you think the black women are the main ones not interested in the consciousness?
I don't get it.
Do you think women are the main ones not interested in the consciousness? I think everyone is interested in this because we are all blacks, no matter women.
Oh, no, that government has a good.
Blo, I know, I know. I don't know whether I'm replying well to. I'm making a
Some of
direct
it that you're
reply
doing.
to this, but what I know before I go to Ikani's comment, last comment, black people or Africa is a set. It is a full set that comprises of people. Because we know people that are men, they're either female or male. So it is a full set for all Africans. I don't know what you can. By the way, can I'm not getting your last comment. The English is too much.
I, I don't think it is, but maybe the perspective at which he's replying that is a little bit confusing, probably. Yeah, I guess. Bro, do you think that black women? Let me read that comment.
Bro, do you
Bro, do
think,
you think that black women are the main ones not interested in consciousness? Do you think so? Okay, I don't.
I mean,
No, I don't. Biri byayagala twogereko. I guess. I don't know. Um. Well, I hope I'm replying to Ikan right. I hope I'm replying right. Um. The journey of conscious. Everyone. We are at different levels of consciousness. Ikan fire. I can say we are all at different levels of this awakening. We are different levels of consciousness. Some people are just beginning to understand how this matrix works. Some people have been halfway the journey. Some people are up there. But it like that's why we always keep on having these lessons and these lectures here on Black Hot Fire Network because each new day we have new people. So um each new day. That's why we have different segments and there is when Keith comes in, he has his own way of preaching things. We have got our colleagues from Kenya, they also have their own way of doing things. And then you got us, who also have our own way of doing things. But at the end of it all, we are talking about this whole, history, information, news, and stuff. So, um, well, so I guess I don't know where you ask is that only women who are interested in the consciousness and things like that. Oh, I'm a little bit confused about about the question you're asking, but yeah, I guess that's that. Oh, forget it. Yeah, master. So I would just before I hope I've answered Fire's question. Yeah, maybe it wasn't addressed to me, but because since we are together, I had to answer. Um, on this particular topic, when we look at the society, The society is comprised of, first of all, family being the smallest unit within the society, by that point. And we have seen that giving back to Ikan, I'm going to drive right back to the comment, the discussion I had with him. You were you were around, yeah, I remember. I had with Ikan, and he was talking about dowry and African stuff, and then and you also like I said, people are conscious. We have levels of consciousness. Someone may be having, much knowledge about the spirituality. Others know a lot about politics and stuff. People have not taken time to get to know what defines the African family. And if we are looking at African family, that means you're definitely going to look at the structure of Africa today. Um, I'm driving to your comment last time. We talked about dowry. You were up against this thing, and I'm going to connect it with today's topic. Most people see a lot of things that are actually going on in Africa, and they think this is African tradition. Not only the dowry part, but also some other cultural things. A lot of people have came into existence, and they found these activities or cultural practices to the point that they are
Soko don't comment.
they are blinded to think this is part of Africa's
Yeah, that
culture.
black
Do you know
men.
that colonization benefited black women more than black men? Then why would they be interested in consciousness if it regulates
Their
their
power.
power? Yeah, now I understand why you're always bitter with me. Me, I love consciousness. It can't fire. Wama do, that's why you were angry with the dowry thing. We, like, now I understand where you're coming from. They are telling you honest. You are married. I was trying to translate exactly what you're saying, but he thought I'm very biased about your comment. But I'm glad that you made it. You just wrote exactly what I was trying to tell him. Yabadde ng'akugamba nze aleeta zino topic golowooza abakazi tufa nnyo ku consciousness. Eyo kugaba atya gobeero. Anyway, um, katoya amusiyazi storage.
Okay, oyinza kuba otegedde kiranga
Nze
ategeeza kiranga.
kimanyi.
Anti ky'omanyi.
Kyemanyi kye yagambye tolaba wali eri we namugambye muno tugenda byogerako. Women, it can not all women. If you generalize things, we wouldn't be living in the we wouldn't be able to to cohabit with each other, because we also have got African men who have done worse than probably what you have seen. So I think the issue of black people generalizing everything all together is just not right. This keeps people knocking head all the time, and apparently, the reason why it is hard for people to unite, because all we know is to pull each other. Like, anyway, whatever. I'll still drive back to like what I was trying to explain. Now, a lot of people have found different things that have happened. First of all, one thing people should know is that the true history of Africa is never taught in school. The true history of Africa is never talked about. People don't talk about the real things, to the point that we adapted new systems, and the people who came found these systems, and they absorbed these systems to the point that up to now people still think that those are our cultural practices. I'm going to give you some vices that people do. first of all, the colonizers were very tricky people. They introduce something to you and then come back later in time and start disregarding what they have introduced. Now that brings confusion. You are trying to tell a generation which has adapted to your culture and norms that what they are doing is wrong. Now they don't know what is right because you scrapped the right culture away. And I feel like this is why a lot of Africans basically are very basic. So so we have had some cultures, um like I said, there are things that were imposed on the African people. For example, we have seen Africans who cut their lips open, and if you trace back to the true history of Africa, no African tradition, no African culture was cutting their lips open. This was done by the colonizers, but the communities decided to of course bring to make others feel to show those ones who were these atrocities were committed to feel at home. At times, you would find that the colonial masters would cut open the lips of some people whom they believe have committed crimes. So you realize that the entire community decides to cut their lips open to show solidarity with the fellow black people in that community who were done that wrong. And now it's so unfortunate that people kept on doing that. And now some Africans think this is the tradition that Africans actually cut their lips. They never told the Africans the truth behind such kind of hurtful, acts that, of course, Africans have on their bodies. So apparently, it is very funny that the colonial masters decided to do that, and then later on come and, of course, start. And later, later on come. Mhm. Got And later, paka, tumuleke tumudamni. And later on come and start disregarding something that they introduced. They will introduce something, and then the next after generations they come and like Africans are barbaric. They do these kinds of inhuman activities. How can you cut your lips? How can you cut your ears? How can you do stuff? Yet these are the punishments that they were, of course, doing. They were doing to Africans, and the community could decide to do the same on their body to show solidarity to the people who have been hurt. In this way, generations would come and find this kind of acts and keep on doing it until to date. Some other cultures are still following these very things. African society were very intellectual society. Apart from what people say that we were primitive, we didn't know shit, Africans didn't know how to do things. We knew how to do things, but the barbarism that was introduced to Africa by the whites who came to Africa is quite a different thing. And for me, I feel like it is so hypocritical for these people who changed the entire cultural system of Africa and turning around and blaming Africa for, of course, doing what they are doing now. And apparently Africans have been experiencing a new phase of cultural development, and unfortunately people think that is part of them. I also drive the same thing to probably what people call dowry. That guy usually talks about it. Dowry is something that the Europeans or the colonial the masters are up against, but they structured this dowry. They are the ones who introduced this whole system on the African culture and tradition practice. But later on, they tried to, of course, bring women emancipation. They tried to make African women feel like, if you do this, you are an object. You are being turned into an object, and an African man is given a different story. They know how to play their games. And one thing I can always tell you guys, these people wrote a story. We are acting the movie. And that's why each time we find black people biting each other's asses, I hate you, I don't like you, you do shit, you do shit. Well, we do shit, then you do better. That's why I can say, if you feel someone is doing shit, someone is doing shit, do better. So the issues, I feel like these people wrote a book, just like the Bible, people wrote the Bible, and actually we are living it. Last time when we had COVID-19, people were trying to get scriptures from the Bible. The Bible said we're going to have this and this, and it was connecting actually to COVID-19. So apparently these people knew at a certain time we're going to be doing shit. They have their calendar. They know, yeah, in this year we are going to be doing this, and the other year we're going to be doing that, and they have to keep doing that. For us, we are people who are acting their movie. They wrote the story, and we are living the story. We are acting. We are in this movie. We are acting it. Um, so we wake up and have disagreement. Now I'm seeing a comment from I'm going to raise a comment from is it a campfire? This is exactly he's African black men are so bitter when it comes to black women. They are so very bitter, and I think this is what those people want. Because bro, you don't know me, crazy, right? But well, that is Africa, and I guess people black people are supposed to be bitter. Black men definitely have to hate black women. They have to hate you when they see you, before you open your mouth, before they get to know who you are. They definitely hate you because probably they feel the system has advantaged the women. So the fact we don't want women anymore, I mean, and women are also going to be saying the same. I've come across different articles written by women all over social media, more especially Facebook, where a lot of women feel like the black men have neglected shit. They have their own reasons. They always have excuses to what they do. So apparently, each body, both the parties have reasons, have excuses to what they do. Black men have reasons why they hate black women. Black women have reasons why they hate black men, and at the end of it all, both of them are saying we are so conscious in our zone. I'm a conscious black man hating a black woman. I'm a conscious black woman hating a black man. Bullshit, is that consciousness really? Well, I don't know. Jib Jabba, thank you for coming through. Thank you for coming through. It is Africa, Maria. And innocent. And yeah, today is a Saturday. We are enjoying our day right with the of course it can fire and stuff like that. But yeah. Jibjaba, how are you? I don't know. I'm so Jibjaba, you're welcome on our live. Yeah, innocent it's just making me laugh. It's rising is a move moyo mubutamanya movement directly.
Kubona nawe
Hunting got to all the time. So like I was trying to say, does he have in cash for top up? Um,
tell the truth as always.
so like before we start judging the community, before we start judging, actually, me when we talk about the consciousness and Africa's society and how black people are actually behaving, we have got people who are divided in sections. We have got, do you know, we have black people who don't believe they're Africans, and they don't want to hear anything about Africa. When you talk about Africa story, that is bullshit. um the best they can do about Africa is the shaming Africa. The next time they want to talk about Africa is you, how stupid bullshit, how come you do shit. I've seen that, and it has separated all the communities. It has separated.
Yeah, I'm doing good.
You know, I couldn't get Chinese, but that's
Uh,
the strong. Yeah, you tell him that. I tell him that. Yeah, Ethiopians pull that. You tell he needs that for sure right now. But yeah, Jibjaba, you said the Ethiopians pulled that. We have been having issues throughout, but I feel like the problem we have is the fact that we don't really know the truth behind what people, the truth behind the Black Africans, because actually we've had the typical Black people in Africa saying, we are not Africans, we are not Africans. We had even some people in America, and I know we even have probably some on Black of Network who watches, and they feel like each time you are bringing stories about Africa is none of their business. So it's none of their business, which is okay. But well, I'm Maria. I'm not going to talk about Africa because I am Africa. So nobody's going to say, don't talk about that shit because that shit is me. I'm sorry. I'm so unapologetic. And I'll keep saying that I'm unapologetic. I will never in this world apologize to anybody about being an African and talking about Africa. That thing I'm never going to do. Not even a bit. I'm so unapologetic when it comes to that. So I know that at times when we talk about Africa, it is useless in the ears and the mind of other people because they are not concerned. It's not their business. Well, what if I say probably another thing is not my business? So, but why do we feel this? Because we have historical issues. Some people will come in and say, I hate Black people because I hate Black people in Africa because we are going through what we are going through right now in America, whatever you are, because history tells us they sold us. All right, fine. That squad of people is also there. That category of people, we put it aside. Then some other people will come and say, we are Black people, but we are just Hebrew Israelites. We are not Africans. There is a difference between Hebrew Israelites and we also have some Africans who say they are not Africans, they're Hebrew Israelites. Igbo people from Nigeria say that every time. We have got Ethiopians who say we are not that. We know. When we look at Ethiopia, we know the indigenous Ethiopians. We know the people who were in Ethiopia before these Moratos came in the picture. So apparently a Morato has a right to stand and start saying, we are not. Yeah, you are not. It's okay, bro. We know you are not. Me, I usually tell them we know you're not. Because you're Morato. So what? So what? You have a right to feel whatever, whatever. So, two, we have other categories of people who keep saying that Africa as a country, sorry, Black people were all over the world. It does not mean that Africans are Black people are Africans because Black people existed in different the world's geographical areas. So they say we have Black people who existed in China, Japan, the US. Others will tell you a story that we were in the US before anybody else. Somebody will tell you we were somewhere before. So we have people who still have that. But before even you start telling me you were a Black person who existed wherever you existed, you should know that Africa is the cradle of mankind. This is where mankind started. This is a home of humankind. Unless you want to tell me you're not a human, but all humans, this is your genesis. Whether you like it or not, this is your genesis. You may have probably been an indigenous person in the US, like people always have those stories. You may be an indigenous person from Germany. You say you were told your ancestors never came from Africa. They were in Germany before the fact and the truth will remain that this is the cradle of man. This is the genesis of mankind. So to wrap it all together, Africa still remains a genesis of humankind. And it's so unfortunate that a lot of people don't really know about this true history. So before you say, I'm an Hebrew Israelite, I'm not an African, but I'm a black person and stuff, well, maybe you're not a human, because as far as I know, this is where this is where it all began. So run away from that. This is where we all began. We have a lot of those I ain't African Negroes here in the US. They say we were here already, which is true, but not to the exclusion of us being the original man in every part of the planet. Exactly, Jibby Jabba. Like I'm saying, if you feel like this is not your genesis, any black person in the world who feels like Africa is not their genesis, probably exclude yourself from being a human being. Because as far as I know, and as far as the truth stands, Africa is where humankind originated from. So I'm not saying you are not an indigenous person from wherever you're coming from. So people should actually stop being bitter. People should stop being bitter. You just, why should you talk about Africa, all that bullshit we don't want here? No. I always say I will never apologize for doing this. I'll never apologize for talking about Africa. That one I will never, nobody will ever make me do that. And I will never do it. So anyway, we were divided. If only, and we still have Africans who keep on blaming. Africans also have their own failings. That's why when you see Africans outside Africa, they are always having. I've heard some debates and talk shows of some Black Americans. Actually, they were making an interview. They were calling a Nigerian guy. They were so beat on each other, and they were on live. So apparently, a Nigerian guy had his own reason why he hated the Black Americans. But all this comes because we have a misconception. We don't know exactly what it means to be a Black person, why you're Black, why you are where you are, the reasons why you're doing what you do, why we have a lot of things in common. Before we talk about consciousness, we need to know. We don't just jump into that thing. That's why some people, you can talk about being conscious when you're actually not. Yeah, but the problem, probably people think they are. A lot of people be thinking they are. Somebody will say, I'm conscious. You cannot be conscious without knowing your true history, without knowing the importance of you being conscious and why you have not been conscious before, until you understand these things. So apparently a lot of people out there be saying they're conscious and conscious because you're wearing of course you're wearing the pyramid, you're wearing whatever cross, you're wearing all the elements. I'm conscious, I'm having this crystal. I've been seeing people anywhere, anyhow, but at the end of it, or in the conclusion, when they're not, because consciousness isn't something you just dive in. Just you wake up, the boom, I'm conscious right now because I've been hearing somebody talk shit. So I am. So I'm conscious right now, definitely because I understand, I listen to what they're saying. No, consciousness is a journey. It's a journey, one of acceptance. And if you're a Black person out there and you still have that little hate, no matter how dirty it is to your fellow Black person, bro, go back and sleep. You're not conscious. Stop. If you have that element, if you feel like you're here right now and you feel like you hate them, I just hate the fact that Nigerians are in America. I hate the fact that she's a Ugandan and she's on Black Profile Network. I hate the fact that, oh, look at her hair. I hate if you still have that element in you and you think you're conscious, stop saying that. Go and sleep. Go back to bed. Because you're not. When you're conscious, even your elevation is different. Even your frequency is different. Your energy is different. Now, consciousness isn't about you talking. First of all, at times we usually, unfortunately, last time when we had a spiritual discussion, it was very early in the morning. I think we had only Derek, who usually sends that blazing emoji. Was it that? Derek
Lie
Q
too
Q.
long.
I liked it too long. Yeah, that was the only guy who was in the lab. You guys missed the lab. Um, there are phases that usually people take. So at times, let me first read Jim Jabba's comment.
Mm.
Jim Jabba say what? I'll get you. Conscious while eating a plate box.
Oh,
The past, the link of Dr. Winters later on. I'll post the link. You will post. All right. I'll be glad. You can still share that with me on my WhatsApp, Jib Jabba. You can still share that. We shall view it with the INNOSSETU. So this whole thing, and this whole thing that always Black people claim they are, is something that is a journey. Otherwise, if you meet consciousness at the middle of your journey and you just dive right in it, you're going to have more hate than what you should give out there. You're going to fall prey. You're going to be so half baked not to even understand. Bet yourself. Yep, your natural yourself, Maria conscious Negroes would say, we are a red, black, green boy. We have, like, yeah, Jim Jabba, we have had of a lot, a lot of people. It is okay for you to feel like, I think maybe saying you're conscious or feeling you're conscious. Do the people even understand this, what it means? Or is it about you talking about the struggle? People talk about struggles, even puppets talk about struggles. We've seen the matrix that goes along, people preaching about the struggle. People have their own interests. People have, nowadays, people talk because this is what people want to hear. People have created channels to talk because they know they are going to grab that crowd. But people don't feel the hype. They don't have that real vibe. They don't have what it takes. Their spirits are speaking otherwise. Their spirits are doing other things and they are talking other things because apparently social media education is a source of income. People are doing this for business. So I just have to wake up and come right here and say exactly what Jibi Jabba wants to hear. Because at the end of the day, I need to have this channel viewed by very many people. I have definitely to choose a topic that I know somebody wants to hear or want to listen to, and I will stick on that topic and probably catch that the attention of the viewers, because at the end of the day we need to get some money from the YouTube channel. Black Hot Fire Network doesn't do that because at times even our watch hours do not extend to the time of us being paid by YouTube. But we still do this because this is why we are here. And this is why Black Hot Fire Network is here. I think one needs to improve on their self-esteem before you can have a real level of consciousness. Exactly, Jibitaba. I agree with you 100%. I agree with you. And most people don't. Most people don't. Um, like if you still go, I've seen the I think it's that oh, bro. I'm trying to remember his name. I'm trying to remember his name. Oh, when I remember it, I will talk about. I hope I do remember. Um, everyone has, first of all, everyone has the way they understand things. That's one thing, and people have different teachers. That's another thing. That's why even when we are talking about issues concerning Black people, we still have others who disagree because probably they have their own perspective. They have had their own teachers who believe in different their different things. So at times I don't like judge them because, but you cannot wake up and start, I'm somebody. I don't know if I don't know if my mind is so closed. I don't know if I'm rigid. But at least I've taken time. For some good time, I've taken time to understand Africa. I may not know a lot about America, and that's why I hardly talk about it. Though I know about its history. That's one thing I'm 100% sure of. I know about the history of America. I know about the history of Black people. I don't know about the current issues because I'm not there, but I read about current issues on news, I see on TV, people post. I see what's going on because I take time. So somebody right there, you don't even take time to know what's going on in Africa, but because definitely you have a lot to say about it. It's kind of crazy, right? So me, I love talking about something I know very well. And when it comes to consciousness, it has got no limit. It doesn't need you to be in Africa to understand. It doesn't need because consciousness itself has got a lot to do with you as an individual, not to the society like people always put it. It has got a lot to do with your elevation, your frequency, how you understand things, how you absorb. If you always understand things wrongly, you cannot absorb the light in stories people say. Don't talk about consciousness because consciousness isn't about, it's not a community work. It's not a community work. It is a self work. You work on yourself. When you're conscious, the way you absorb things, knowledge, the way you understand stuff people say, the way you absorb the knowledge from other people, not everything you take, you filter, you learn. That is consciousness. Not consciousness is not a community thing. You don't look at Maria and say, wow, well, how I absorb my energy, how I reflect it, my vibration. Consciousness is an individual thing. You cannot wake up and start questioning, how are they not conscious? How am I? How are they not conscious like me? If you start, definitely you're not. Because when you're conscious, the conscious apparently, oh shit, I don't know how to explain this thing. But me, as far as I know, consciousness is greater on an individual level. An individual level. You gotta know your business. You gotta understand how you absorb things. Because at the end of the day, I may be here. I'm not 100% correct in everything I say. But you got to choose the most important things and learn from that and connect from that and understand from that. Apparently, well, I feel like that's consciousness. Though apparently everyone is. Of recent, all Black people are conscious. All Black people are conscious. And Black people who think they are very conscious, they must be at war at all the time. We must be fighting all the fucking time. Whatever. Whatever. Wacha ngafanye kaka. What's going on? Give me some tea, water. So, Jibjaba, what do you think about consciousness? I think one needs to improve on their self-esteem before you can have a real level of consciousness. And of course, people are so angry. I think Black people are very, very extremely angry and annoyed. We are very annoyed with who we are, with what is going on, with what we are doing, with the outcome of what we are doing. And I think we really need to understand these things. We thank you. We really have to understand these things to some. I'm boy. I'm gonna come no. So sister. Jibijaba, I agree with you. And me, first of all, I feel like at times we do things that are actually dividing us as Black people. Um, First of all, we have got people who say it is okay for a Black woman to wear whatever she's wearing because she has a right to do that. That is also another squad of conscious people. We've got another team of people who say, don't wear the wigs, don't wear the wigs and stuff like that. That's also another tier or of conscious people I see on social media. Then we got other people who say it is okay if you want to bleach. Why is so black? So let her bleach if she, I mean, if it gives her the self-esteem she needs. Somebody also say, don't bleach. We don't want to see women bleaching. Now, those are categories of conscious people we see all over. Someone is going to say, I'm conscious because I see it is okay. She has a right. Don't be who you were. Don't look for men's affirmation. Do what you find fit and stuff like that because they feel that is consciousness. Okay. But like I said, consciousness is about you as a person. It has got a lot to do with how you view things. Are you willing to let some other things that are not important go? Are you willing to, of course, focus on the most important things that, of course, put you on that higher vibration? Are you ready? Are you willing to? Because at the end of it all, the world is producing different energies. Are you willing to subdue? Are you willing to stand when there is all that negativity around? Conscious people at times, me, I feel like these are people who you will even be sitting with, but you are doing bullshit, and they will feel like you are not existing, and you will not know, and they will overlook everything, you know. But apparently, I think the word consciousness is too much all over the Black platforms. I don't know whether it's a badge of knowledge. I don't know whether it's a badge of understanding. I don't know the badge that people put tag consciousness with. Because I see a lot of wrong things, and at times I'm wondering, how come you're even saying you're conscious? How come you're saying you're conscious when you are leading division, when you're causing disunity, when you're causing about segregation between Black people, when you want to teach false? Because I know these people know they're talking about what they're talking about is not true, but they'll keep doing that. You say you're conscious and you want to bring segregation. If you cannot preach about unity, then don't talk about shit. Don't talk about being a conscious person. You understand? So I feel like that is the mistake. But of course, um, I'm not here to spread hate or to be bitter. All right. As much as I don't involve myself in people's business, I don't. I don't. I don't involve myself in people's business a lot. I let people be what they want because me it doesn't concern me. What concerns me is me. And maybe that's why even I don't associate with the people. I don't like associating with people because at times they disappoint you. Feel like what they're doing, you're like, how come this person is doing this? But that is them. So to keep my energy as Maria, I just keep me to me. And I do me, and I do me, and I do me at the end of the day. So because people understand things different. So at first I began really to hate Americans. There was a certain time because I used to write poems. I shared one of my poem in the Black Wi-Fi Network Radio Facebook page sometime back. I don't know whether it's Keith who shared this poem or me. I shared that poem. I don't know. I shared a poem I wrote. Um, about the Black Americans and Africans. That time I was so much into writing shit. I don't know what happened to me, but I used to write. So a lot of Black Americans loved that poem. I remember even I got until now. I think that poem is still circulating all over. At times, whenever I click on it, I find like it's in 1 million likes stuff. A lot of Black Americans love that poem, but a few came out. I didn't say shit. I didn't say any bad word about Black Americans, but a few of them started. The majority loved it. Like everybody was like, "It's beautiful, thank you, stuff, Lord." A few people just came and somebody, people love hate. They love that thing. I don't know why. Um, some people just came in, so we don't care. We don't want to be your. I remember I quote one American guy just said, "We don't want to be related to you, motherfuckers. We don't want to be related to you, Africans." Who the hell wrote this band stuff? So the guy was so angry and bitter. And I was like, why is this dude so mad? Why is she? And basically most of the people used to say that, yeah, well, make some men, some women stuff. And I was like, why are they so angry? It is just something wrong and it's a thing stuff. So but of course, then I felt so disappointed because I wrote that poem. It came from the depth of my heart. I wrote that poem. It came from the marrows of my bones with nothing attached to it, just love. And I was so disappointed. I was like, what? How come? Why am I even loving this kind of people? But at the end of it all, I was so pissed actually. I just went back and saw the people who liked it, the people I used to live. So I came back and looked at people who loved I mean, the poetry, the people who loved that poem. Uh, then I said, well, of course, first of all, the people who loved it are the majority. So I said, yeah, people will always do this. So, um, and when I would go back to, that's how I got to learn how African people are so divided when it comes to things that unite us. Um, I also said sometime, and I always apologize about this. You see, it is true we may have had indigenous people in America. Some Africans will say, for us, we did not come from Africa. We were here. It is you, the black slaves, who were brought here. That means even in the United States of America, black people are divided. There are those who pinpoint to others, say, you were the slaves who were brought to America. Others will say, for us, you found us here. We were never brought here. And so that means I just felt sorry because apparently we are so confused. We are so confused, really. If people still have Jibijobo. Don't they call you Mouthy Maria? Talk about the black woman all day gets old. It's what it is. Yes, it's a money making industry. Don't they call you Mouthy Maria? Oh, your poet. Don't be upset. That's the same time that will unveil you for stepping on his Jordans. I'm not. I'm not upset, Jabba. It's just that sometimes when you're going, I hate it when black people hide their anger, their ignorance, the fact that they don't understand a lot of things behind the umbrella of knowing things. It's very terrible because at the end of the day, people are always misleading. It's always People are always misleading. You understand? So if I was like I was telling you at a certain time, I got so pissed. I got so peace. At times I would there is a year where there was extreme killings of black Americans, and actually it's like I was emotionally immersed in this whole situation. Like it became part of me, and actually that's what derived me to writing that poem. I felt like somebody needed to hear that somebody cares, because at a certain time I felt like probably black Americans were not caring for each other. Probably they had a lot going on that they forgot they are related. That was what my mind was telling me at that time. But I got a huge blow when I was like, cool, these people can never be loved. Nobody, how? That was what was in my mind. But after, of course, sitting and thinking, I was like, no, yeah, I guess shit happens in Africa as well. So, I mean, they're normal people. So you expect this at the end of the day. Uh, so black people, we are very, very separated. Apparently, we have different goals. People have different goals, yes, which is okay. Your goal cannot be mine. JB Jabba's legacy cannot be mine. But we as black people, we should have one goal that unites us aside our personal family goals, and of which this still drives us back to history, that every family had its own legacy, but at the end of the day, the society or the community had its legacy that it was known for. It had a legacy that it was supposed to protect as a whole. It did not matter whether you stay far or near, but we had something that always united us, that something we were ready to die for, something we are willing to protect in every aspect. Now, Africa and the black people have lost that touch. We have lost the purpose that unifies us. We have lost that cause, that we have become so selfish that we do not understand. And the moment you are selfish, you can never understand what someone else is going on, because basically everything about you is you. We have had black people, of course, I've had black people advocating for, of course, patronizing African businesses. I see sisters from the US and you say, I've opened up a beauty parlor. Please stop going to Chinese. I don't know that, but I don't know the connection that people have with the Chinese, and other people have beauty parlors in the US. But I see sisters, and I know if I was there, I would definitely go to her salon. But anyway, before even I come to your saloon, how are you gonna treat me? That's very important. But well, that's not discussion. So people always advocate for patronizing African businesses, um, which is kind of okay. I would still advocate for the same, because here we've got a lot of people here in Africa who have opened business, but when they are not Africans. So I say fine. So we advocate, we need to support our people. We need to support our people in, of course, their businesses. Um, but now I still run to this very question and say, you as a black person now, you've opened that business, right? And you're calling black people to come and support. I don't know, it's calling my phone, to come and support your business. Uh, whom have you employed? Have you employed black people? Are you going to respect black people when they come to your business? Are you going to embrace them with what they've come with? Are you going to show them the love that they've decided to move 20 blocks, 30 blocks from wherever to come and patronize your business? Are you going to bring that energy they expect from you? These are things that a lot of black people don't remember. I'm not going to come to your salon and then because when I come to a black person's salon, I expect that love. Well, I expect it. Nobody should tell me not to expect it, because I chose to come to your salon. So I expect that love. I expect to see you being genuine with me. You do that here. You go to an African shop, You jam. I mean, the economy is not good, right? We are in a crisis of money. We are in a money crisis all over the world. So I jump a shop of an Indian man to come and buy from you. I don't have the money. Maybe if I was rich, I wouldn't be complaining. Actually, I'll even leave you with a token. I can even decide to give you more. But I don't have it. But I'll come to your shop and you're hiking the prices. And I'm like, why are you selling this at that price? Well, we've got that Indian who's selling it less. No, we are looking at this. I know probably maybe the tax we pay as black people, maybe the rent and all stuff is high and stuff. But I think we need to understand each other, because actually, whether you like it or not, the economy is bad, and someone needs to have that surplus. Someone needs to have that balance when they do their shopping. Someone needs to come. We know we have got that segregation. We have got some Indians polar here. No Africans enter in Indians polars. The Indians, they want to touch their women. No African is allowed to touch the Indians. Stuff there is that they have their polars that are made for Indian women, but it is okay for an African woman to go to that polar, but it is a taboo for an Indian woman to go to a black woman's saloon or parlor, which of course we know is not right. Which of course we know is not right. But before we as black people advocate for this, we should also understand that we should be the first choice before anything. If I decide to come to your store, give me the respect I need. Don't cheat. Let's do it fair. So that next time I want to come, nobody wants to waste their money on stuff because I'm supporting a black person. So the next time, because I'm supporting a black person, so I should agree and let's be very expensive because I'm just supporting. And I know you. Baba. Abu, Abu, let me call him. Don't be upset. Just like me asking Setu if he's okay. We are sentient and can read each other. Setu was a little bit pissed. Um, he's a very tempered person. He was a little bit pissed. Um, he said that he's not pissed and not shop anywhere. That will not display the price. I'm very Jack. He said that he's not pissed. Eh? God, sorry, Django. Maze. All right, hold on, guys. Let me come. Ne mwana tokola bintu ebyo gwe mwana. Um, mm, okay, Jibijaba says, I do not shop anywhere that will not display prices. Well, sometimes in Africa, not everywhere you shop displays prices. Some other people, they'll just tell you verbally, this is this, and maybe they will even sell according to how you are putting on. So they'll know probably she has money and stuff. Also, no receipt, no patronage from me. All right, true. Mukazi wo naakuba yava yogere ne mukyala wo. So, um, when you look at all those, um, a lot of African, a lot of African society have changed. There is a time when we started in school about when we studied in school about barter trade, where people used to exchange goods for goods, they told us they introduced this monetary trade, where people used, of course, to have value for something like cowrie shells and other things that it gave value. You understand? But if you look at the right aspect, you see, like what I'm saying, we are looking at things that are actually not right, but we are meant to believe that these things are right. Money is just a paper. There is just it's a paper that has been accepted. Innocent, come. Where you go? Jib Jabba is asking for you. Nga takumbuza atabuuza gwe akulaba. Neesiyombye mbadde nyomba, mbadde ndi muyomba kweli. Can't it go and biased about it? Like I was saying, money is money is just a paper that they put value. They choose a certain paper, they put value to it. Probably they back it up with oil, gold, whatever. It becomes valuable. The people are going to move with this paper and give it out. You're going to show up with this particular paper. It's a paper. Even when you decide to put fire on it, it will, burn into flames. But people put value to it. Now, what is really more valuable? Was it the things we used to do in barter trade or this mere paper? That, of course, the paper that they have put value to, because people, first of what job is that? For example,
Gwali mukolo kirawe nagendedde gwali mukolo.
There is you were talking about barter trade. There is when these bazungos, the colonial masters introduced this new trade because they could not afford things to share. They did not have any materialistic thing. So they scrapped away this, and the excuse they gave was, we could not, it does not have value. It doesn't have any essence for you to, of course, bring a goat for a cow. You understand? But again, you're bringing something that is useless. Remember the cowrie shells. The cowrie shells. So people decided to put value on a cowrie shell, which is apparently something that is not valuable. They put value. So the colonial masters introduced the cowrie shell as a means of money. This was all a way of cheating. Because for them, they did not have the things to exchange with us. They did not have they did not have anything to give us. Because of course, barter trade, INNOSSETU would bring his goat and he says, well, Maria, I want a cow. I don't have a cow. So how about we exchange this? And I'm like, yeah, INNOSSETU, I too don't have that goat. So let me give you this. It was, let me give you this. You give me the other. We had things to exchange. Now the colonial masters or the Bazungus, when they came, we did not want anything from them. They didn't have anything that would excite us. So they scrapped away the barter trade, which of course they said was not valuable. Barter trade was cheating. You find someone has something which is more expensive and is getting it for a less expensive thing. Was a cowrie shell really valuable? than all this, the gold, than all the cows. You have two cowrie shells, you exchange it. And what was the essence? So we lost that value. We lost that value. They created a way. They created their way into that trade system. That what they had is what they made valuable. They made the things they had more valuable. Someone would come with this idiotic, someone comes with the safety pins, bullshit safety pins, and says, I want a cup of gold, and you're definitely going to do that. How valuable is that? Someone will come with things that have no value. And until now, we have been shaped to value those unvaluable things. Papers. We value papers. Money is just papers. It's just valued with something so intangible. But that's why now that they are controlling this paper, that you'll even have a bag full of the paper, you go to shop and still come back when you. That's why there is always something that there is always the proverb that says that money has never been enough. Money has never been enough. I forgot about the cowrie shell scam. What the fuck we gonna do with the shell? Exactly, Jib Jabba. Exactly. And people were taking this goddamn thing. People were taking this, and until now we have been shaped that way. So apparently you go buy shit, and that's why people keep saying money has never been enough. People are striving for money which has never been enough. You can never make enough money. You can never make enough money, which was not the case. Which was not the case. Stop. All right. Innocent, what do you think about money? This money that we have nowadays. Yogera ku money. Ogera ne ku cowrie shells. Ogera.
Money.
Oh yes.
We know that. Seranyogama muntu nga so money when we look at money, first of all, what we consider as money with value, the money that is accepted wherever you go wherever you go in the world, they are dollars. For every money in every country is backed by a mineral, and that is gold. Money is backed by gold, you know that. But you can never see a Ugandan shilling, Ugandan money being considered international. You will never see Kenyan money being considered international. But we know of the businessmen in Kampala. We know of the people that are dealing with business trade in Kenya, in any African country, exchanging goods for dollars,
Mm.
exchanging goods for dollars.
Mm.
Even when this paper money was introduced in African countries, let it be the coins, leave alone even the cowrie shells, which had no meaning.
Mm.
Even the coins they introduced, this money doesn't apply. This money is backed by a mineral, which is gold, which they pick from Africa. It is backed by gold. So the wealth of a country is backed by gold, is backed by a mineral. But very many Africans, they don't know this. That's why we are here. Very many people in Africa, they don't know that the gold, the first I was watching how they are forcing very many people in Congo. They force them to mine their own resources for the interest of the Bazungu. They don't know that the gold they are mining, it is the same gold that backs the money in that country. They don't know. They don't know this. That the same gold they're mining, that it backs the money in the same country.
Exactly.
But when you mine gold in African countries, you You don't even know the market where to sell that gold.
Mm,
So
mm,
money is just scam, just to scam people, and especially the dollar, just to scam people.
mm.
Ibjaba.
In the US, paper money is created from nothing. The Constitution reads that money is coined and banked by physical assets, not printed like paper money and backed up by a promise to pay. Correct, settled. True.
So so there is no way there is no way we always talk about African money to not to be having a meaning in a not to be having a meaning in a international market. Ugandan money. Why? I was told that if you may even go to US and ask for Ugandan money and you don't see,
Yeah, yeah.
unless when you just
Tujana ziraba.
even when you want to make exchange.
They don't have the value. You
So
cannot.
so the money doesn't have any
Mhm.
value, but someone will respect a dollar in Africa.
Mm.
Will respect a dollar.
That
In
is
fact,
backed up by
the way
African
our
dollars.
Africans were blind, we are blind over this. Uh, someone will a dollar in Ugandan shilling is around
3,500 over
3,600,
6.
700, 3,600,
700 over.
almost crossing, ne
Wala.
800,
Mukwa.
almost crossing.
Tegenza kukuminyaza pound.
But you will see that someone can accept, someone will accept $1 for 50K, just a mere seeing a dollar.
Mm.
So people have that concept, people have that in their mind that money in their country, together, even the leaders can't put it on one. Together.
Mm.
So that is Africa. And that is what colonialism brought to Africa. They started out with forging out cowrie shells. They went on to things that not even uh,
Value.
valued in African
Mm.
countries. So money in African countries is
Stegen.
people focus so much on money rather than resources we have. But these people, they are the same people that consider the same money, back that money with the resources. They steal from Africa. Again,
Mm.
so that is it. Okay.
Njogedde nnyo aboye.
You get to it, I told that. Now I can.
Yogera. So you know the we have heard apparently we have heard since we are talking about the society um we have had different religions that have been introduced to Africa. Mm.
So we know that talking about African society and how it has been changed over time. We know
Mm.
that colonialism had a huge impact on the lives of Africans.
Mm.
Africans, however much however much generations have passed and generations have gone, we still have that impact in we Africans.
Mm.
And these impacts are still fresh on our minds, apart from the little ignorance about people what they are going through. But the impact can't go away. We know that economic policies were adopted by Europeans who destroyed the colonies rather than help them. Africa was damaged economically,
Mm.
politically, and culturally.
Mm.
Africa's traditional lifestyle and culture were destroyed. The Europeans had no interest in the tradition African culture and had no concern for for the Africans. So there are a lot to do with colonialism and changing African society. We know
Mm.
that first of all, colonial government took over much of the Africa's land for their own personal and commercial use,
Mm. Mm.
like mining, or commercial farms. So they were selective in choosing land and took only the best and called it their own.
Mm.
That is where the demarcations began from. We know that the Belgian and Britain were mostly responsible for taking the land. The Belgians took the land in Congo, and British conquered land in Kenya and South Africa. Central, East, and South Africa had nice climates and fertile soils, encouraging the British and the Belgian to settle in these areas. We know about the whites in South Africa right
Mm.
about now,
Mm.
and they are the same people that are most privileged in South Africa.
Yeah.
We know that people in South Africa today, we are looking at how society was changed in African community. We see that we know that in South Africa, whites live in different areas compared to the blacks.
And then South Africans will proudly say, "We are developed."
Mm,
Get away. They be insulting other African countries, and they forget that even the development in South Africa, they don't. Sorry, they don't even benefit from
mm,
the development they are talking about.
mm.
Crazy.
In a perfect world, I would rather have a goat. You'll get milk, cheese, then you can eat its female you can bleed it. Essentially, the goat won't lose value unlike the
The
dollar.
dollar, exactly,
Kitegeera?
exactly. Batugumaza, they did not have anything to
And the dollar,
exchange,
and the dollar, the
so they
dollar,
scrapped
the
away,
dollar, the dollar, the dollar is always the
fluctuating.
fluctuating, is always unstable.
Yeah.
Is always unstable. Today you may go when it is of different price, you go it is a different price, and that is how they wage things in the world. They are the people who decide, of course, to
Mm.
make it low or high.
They scrapped this kind of trade. Ushtegera? Because for them bali tebalina kyatuwa. And they knew that Africans had valuables. At a certain time we would know how valuables our things are. So they knew they would not keep those standards. Ushtegera? So I don't know how we even embrace this kind of idiocracy.
So in addition to what I've been saying, we know that when European nations began creating farms and mining companies in Africa, they needed people to work on them, so they started using Africans' cheap labor. Africans who lived in their areas either lost their land to the Europeans or were unable to live off their land. They moved to the towns, farms, and mines started by Europeans. Working conditions were, of course, terrible, were corporal punishments and low wages or pay. They were paid in cash. They were paid in cash and food rations. Imagine. We know that Europeans needed money to run their overseas governments and services to for settle communities, just as it is now. So mother countries usually provided little to their colony. So colonial governments began taxing local Africans, especially became problems after the World War II when European countries were financially devastated because they have put a lot in of course World War. Europeans began taking advantage of Africans, forcing them to work to pay their taxes without giving them anything other than compensation. So forced labor increased, and many Africans, of course, men were separated from their families since the only men were used to work on farms and mines. And in Congo, this is still going on, like the video I've been watching on TikTok, how
Mhm.
Congolese men are forced to mine their own resources. Very many of them, thousands of them. We know that African villages lost their manpower for food production, leading to famine. Traditional African villages started to decline, and Europeans started employing Asian immigrants, creating tension between Asians and Africans in Africa. No matter why these people they normally talk about the food crisis in Africa because
Yeah.
they took that labor we had in Africa, they took it away. So that's why they normally talk about Africa being insecure in
Mm,
food security. The economic structure of African society was changed by Europeans. Cash crops were introduced to meet industrial needs of European countries. And actually, these days, I'm seeing very many people being convinced about the cash crop growing in African countries.
mm,
Very many people are diverting out from food crops to cash crops. So people are doing this unknowingly. They don't know that this is a European policy. These are
mm,
policies of Europeans. These are strategies for Europeans. Mm?
mm,
So we see that cocoa, coffee, tea, and cotton were the main cash crops produced on large scale for basic needs, leading to famine among many Africans. Europeans changed the economy from a model producing economy um, food to, of course, and by the way, all the crops produced by Africans were exported and prices was set by colonies just as it is now. When you're selling something out of Africa, if you have your coffee, you want to export to Africa to those Western countries, they are
mm,
the people that have to set prices for whatever product you have, for whatever raw material. They are the same people who set prices just as it is now. How is Africa going to develop yet? They are the people that are still in African economies.
mm,
We know that Africans were not allowed to grow these cash crops to benefit themselves.
mm,
Trade was prohibited between Africans, so they were forced to export all cash crops produced and minerals, of course. So European colonial powers did not plan to industrialize or modernize Africa, and this has never been in their plans. So, Africans were used solely to produce raw materials, export them to Europe, and then re export them Africa as final products, just as it is now.
mm,
And I wish we could know this that these are the aims of these Europeans. So, sold at high prices. They take raw materials from here, they bring products back at high prices from our products. So Africans could not afford to pay for these products. These were several negatives, because these are several negatives of colonialism for Africans, like prohibition of trade, the breaking of up and traditional society and values, lack of political development, and ethnic rivals inside countries.
mm,
We know that Africa would most like still be behind the rest of the world without colonialism, though. Some we know that we would be having our own problems in Africa
mm,
rather than what these people brought in Africa, what impact these people did in Africa, and what they are still planning for Africa. We have been talking about the money value in African countries. Very many African countries they are complaining about the money value in, but they are not complaining about the resources that are being stolen from these countries.
mm.
Simanyi lwaki yogera ggwe.
Like, yongeza.
Kase tukoze ssaawa bbiri wanaagattako n'ebigye twakola nga ziwera ssatu.
Sure. Ajibala. Tagenda njibala. Yogera tukole
Mmanzire
kusatu. Yogera ggwe.
mmanzi sirina kye njogera nze.
Yogera nno.
Mmanzi.
So, like, I was posing that question. We are talking about how colonization, of course, changed the African society, how people started to be, of course, behave um, after the Europeans coming to Africa. A lot of things are now blamed on African families, but little do people know that all these things were just introduced to Africa. Okugeza, how do you, religion?
Mhm.
Religion, has affected Africans. Africans society was always polygamous. Chitegera. How has religion affected that sector of extended families, nuclear, polygamous, shared stuff?
Abantu kitali
Mm-mm.
akwefosinga
Ogera kyali.
ekintu yangu okole lunaku
Enjo.
lunaku bawe ignorant yabanatono
Depende.
ddala
Bagenda kundaba amazzi agataala ebintu. Bagenda tutegeerera sooka gireyogerako awo tuleke tujja. Si kuba nga mbuuza kibuuzo kyonna tokiddamu ne tujja.
so when we look at when we were starting this show, I talked about components of African society that consisted of united people with the same norms, united people with the same culture, people united. So the social status of people in African communities consisted of culture. Culture consists of languages. Culture consists of African tradition, religion, African spirituality, what people believed in before colonialism, consists of African family system.
Mm.
Twayogera kedda.
Mm.
So we see after colonialism, um, before colonialism, we had an extended family system in African society.
Mm.
Um, a system that consisted of a mother, father, grannies, grandchildren in Africa, in the family system. That is the extended family system.
Mm.
Then during colonialism, like I said, very many people were displaced here to different areas.
Mm.
We see the outbreak, we see the coming up of nuclear family system in African countries.
Mm.
People started living as a small groups because they were divided from their families, and it was very hard for them to go back because
Mm.
during colonialism they are the same people that introduced taxes. People had to pay taxes, so people ended up separating from their families.
Mm.
However, there are some African countries that still have, even in Uganda, we have small group of people that still practice extended family system.
Mm.
But there is a way colonialism changed the entire system of family, because now today, if like I'm set and I bring my wife will stay with my mom, my dad along nga tuli wamu.
In the same house.
There is a way it looks
Weird.
weird
To the
to
community
the
and
community.
family.
Okitegeera?
Mm.
Yeah. By'omukwano.
And then, of course, religion also, apart from Islam, which allows people to marry more than four, other religions say it's a sin for you to have more than one woman. And the part of that, it's a sin, but again, these are the religions that zikiriza ebisiyaga.
Mm.
Bakkiriza abantu okuba kufumbirwa mu kyaki nga serious.
Mm.
But to marry more than one woman is a sin.
Mm.
Yet you are embracing other things. So what tugamba, this is also a weapon of mass destruction when it comes to Africa. Olwo lutalo nga waluleese. Tunakuuma sigiri nina ogenda nfumbe. Kati kanjira njogera ogenda oggyeko.
Closing.
Alright, Jibjo tena chia commenting zeko. Okay, guys. Path. Jibja batena comments there again. Umuntu butono nnyo mbasibulaba. All right, guys. Thank you so much, Jibijaba, for all those great comments. Thank you so much, You Can Fire, for the comments. Thank you so much for the silent majorities. Of course, who always watch and not say a thing, but we know you're watching. Thank you so much for loving and support Black Hole Fire Network. Jibijaba, we hope it's not cold like last time. Well, the weather here is kind of cool, but yeah, thank you so much, guys, for supporting and loving Black of Fire Network. We are looking forward to seeing you on Monday, probably first thing in the morning. Um, let's sign out. All right, to give yourself.